Hey, everybody, welcome to another episode of Purple Insider, a very special episode. Matthew Collar here, as always, and Drew Magary of Defector, who has just dropped his Why Your Team Sucks Minnesota Vikings version. I just got done reading it. I thought the Patrick Royce drive-by was inappropriate. Patrick is a great man, but your framing of Vikings fans was pretty good. A lot of great stuff within that. Good morning, sir. How are you?
Folks, we all have cell phones and we all love looking at them for boobs. Yeah, how you doing? I am good. I'm good. When I wrote the post this week, I had to I don't know if it was my best effort because I'm so jazzed about what I did in the offseason. And it's funny because it's like they're not going to be good, but it's like it's the first year where I'm like, it's okay if they're not. I know I say that now. Like if they go 7-10, I'll piss and moan for a million years, right? But right now it's like, yeah, okay, all right. Feels a little bit of house money right now.
I did think there was less violence in this one than there has been before. You could, in previous iterations, you could really feel your tension inside, the bubbling over of rage and frustration.
Yeah, I wonder who might have caused that rage. I wonder what, I wonder what hardworking professional guy who goes 3 and out in clutch situations might have spurred me to be a little angrier at the Vikings than I usually am.
There may have been a 4th and 8 check down that could have caused some angst within you, but
what's funny is that I remember I was at that game. I've told you this. I was at that game and I was behind Kirk. Like my vantage point was behind Kirk on that play. And I saw, I think it was it Dexter Lawrence who was in his face?
Yep.
And I saw him I saw Lawrence in his face immediately because our interior line sucked and still does. And he just got rid of it. And I remember being like, oh yeah, he had to I just remember the play failing. It wasn't just Kirk failing, it was everybody failing. So
yeah, it was also Ezra Cleveland on the left side as well, allowing Dexter Lawrence. However, I did see something that really blew my mind the other day in training camp practice. Okay, listen to this. This is some real insight here. Someone broke through the line, and JJ McCarthy ran away and threw it to someone. Yeah, I know, it was nuts.
Wow.
Yep. Absolutely wild concept.
It's amazing. It's amazing how much interior line play only matters when you have a quarterback who is slower than an eggplant.
And what I would give to Kirk is that he didn't select Drew Samia to play guard. He didn't pick Dakota Dozier, Tom Compton, Mike Remmers, et cetera, or even Ezra Cleveland.
But I don't have to do the thing. It's not Kirk's fault anymore,
yes.
Right? I don't have to do that anymore. I can just say he sucks.
That's true.
In my life.
So normally I don't give homework to guests. I try to set up the show to where I will guide you through this football talk journey and you don't have to do anything except for be yourself. But this time, I decided to give you a little homework, Drew. And because your series is Why Your Team Sucks, I wanted to go the opposite with you and talk about the things that you are excited about. So you have made a list of things that you are most excited about 2024. Since we've known each other, this is as enthused as I have ever seen you about this team, with the fact they moved on from Cousins, draft JJ McCarthy, and off we go. So we'll begin with your list. And folks in the comment section, if you want to ask Drew any questions or heckle him, both are very much acceptable. Oh, yeah, these people, you know how comment sections can be. There's some rascals in there. All right, let's start. Let's go through the list. Let's start with the things that you are the most excited about for Vikings 2024.
Okay, I was going to order these, but then I realized I didn't really feel like doing that. Although I do have a number one. Number one is the wideouts. So anytime you have Justin Jefferson on a team, that's great. If we go 7-10, but Justin catches for 2,000 yards, that's a fun season, right? So Justin, and then also Addison. I know, especially now that we know that there's a suspension coming down the pike, in my brain, that matter's settled. It is not settled at all. In real life, he could have a drinking problem. He certainly has a car problem. He should basically never drive again. They should just give him a driver and he just goes around with a dude driving around in a Navigator or whatever. But him, and then also Naylor, this is the year, the one completely stupid delusion that I have is that Naylor will become a star. Will get close to, he'll catch 50 or 60 balls and be the kind of guy that like he gets a really fat deal to go somewhere else at the end of his rookie contract. And then he sucks in that place. But like for now, he's going to be like really good. That's what I think.
Okay. Well, just to your point with Jalen Naylor, I think Kevin O'Connell has been thinking the same thing for about 3 years with him, that he would be.
Yeah. And then he tears a pinky toe and then,
right.
Yeah, it's those guys who like when they come off the field and it doesn't look like anything's wrong with them and they don't even say why the guy is wrong and why the guy's messed up and you're like did his wife just die in a car accident or something like that? But it's just like, no, he just like turned out he had like a little tummy ache, or something like that. And it's like, I don't know about this guy.
It's a violent game out there. It's not as easy as it looks to take those.
Well, yeah, that's the other thing is I can't be like, he's soft, an NFL player. A person who plays, like if I stepped on an NFL field, I would be vaporized in 5 seconds.
Right. He could snap your head off and beat you with it. But to your point, though, the wide receiver group with Justin Jefferson, I think that the potential with the arm talent of the quarterbacks for Justin Jefferson to make downfield catches and also insane catches is something that is intriguing here, because we were joking around about 4th and 8 and the checkdowns and so forth, but also there was a lack of DGAF throws toward Justin Jefferson. And I think that he got frustrated over the years of just like, can you just throw the ball somewhere in my direction? And then here comes Nick Mullins and says, I'll do it.
Right.
And for a couple of games, he ends up with, 180 yards a game just because Nick Mullins agreed to sign that contract to just throw the ball in the direction of Justin Jefferson. And so far, what we've seen in training camp is that Sam Darnold seems willing to do this same exact thing, because he's been hitting Justin Jefferson repeatedly in the last couple of practices as they've gotten going. And even some catches where you're like, Justin, don't jump for that. There was one the other day where he rose up, grabbed it, kind of went down to the ground. He just said, no, that's okay. But the potential for absolute wow plays from these wide receivers, very high when you have a quarterback that's not the most accurate and is willing to put that ball anywhere.
Right. He's going to be like presentable Nick Mullins, Darnold. I think that he'll see the bench pretty soon into the season. But yeah, I mean, it's not going to be a situation like, sort of late Dobbs mania era or Jaron Hall, where like you just can't move the ball at all.
Right.
Like that's not going to, he'll throw for yardage, and that'll be nice to watch, even if that yardage also comes with 3 picks a game, which it probably will.
Yeah, well, it's very possible that it will. I don't have a lot else to say about the receivers. They're awesome. They're always awesome. Every point in Vikings history, there's awesome wide receivers.
One thing I'll say is that Addison, like he has been targeted as like a regression candidate by a lot of people, particularly because he scored 10 touchdowns. So like, oh, that'll go down. But I think he will be a better wideout this year, even if he misses games because of the DUI. I think he is going to be a very good receiver for a very long time. He was a great draft pick.
I did read something from a lawyer the other day about Addison and the potential for a suspension. And my takeaway is it's just not clear. It's not clear what's going to happen still from the legal system, even though he's been charged. And with the NFL, it seems that the NFL waits until these things are wrapped up before they bring down the suspension. This could get moved back. We might not be talking about a suspension until even next year. But as far as Addison's ability goes, he had a 50-yard catch yesterday. He's getting open all the time in training camp. It didn't affect him on the field last year at all, and it probably won't this year as well. What else is on your list?
I mean, one more thing about Addison is that maybe there is, I don't know if they've had this dialogue in team headquarters, but maybe there is an inclination to get his suspension over with, because if he gets suspended late in the season and they're in, like it's going to be another year where they're in the hunt in December, but they're really not, but they still might want to win anyway. And if they don't have Addison for those games, well, that's worse than not having him at the beginning of the season when the schedule's brutal anyway, and you're starting a guy who's on borrowed time like Darnold. And then you don't really want to suspend him in 2025 if that's going to be like the beginning of your money years where you're spent, you want to go for it every year. You don't want Jordan after that year. So maybe that's in there. Okay. So the second thing on my list is it's McCarthy. Like it's an obvious, like I had to put Justin number one because Justin is the main draw. That's why I watch, right?
Mm-hmm.
But McCarthy, it's one of those things where, I was on here with you and I gave the take where it was like, we're trading up to get May. No doubt about it. No McCarthy. And of course that didn't happen because it was never going to happen. And now I'm fully in the like, Drake May's a bust and JJ's doing everything right. And, so I'm very interested to see, like, I still think that there's a very good chance that he eats your pie chart. And if he doesn't start week one, like the second, like, I think there's a mindset with O'Connell where it's like, let me put Donald in there for as long as I can tolerate. And then once I can't really tolerate it anymore, I know the kid will probably be pretty good. Like he'll be all right. And honestly, that could happen after like a half. It could happen after 3 weeks, but like it could happen very, very fast. I wouldn't be surprised because Sam Darnold can't be anything other than Sam Darnold. I haven't bought into the Sam Darnold thing at all. Like, I mean, just think about it. Just think about if you're talking to like a random NFL fan and you tell them you're getting really hyped for Sam Darnold, they're going to laugh for like 8 unbroken minutes. And then they're going to shove you off a cliff. Like it's just not going to happen. So I'm excited to see the kid. I'm excited to see him move, right? I'm excited to see him run. I'm excited to I know practice footage means nothing, but I loved seeing, him making accurate cross body throws and being, a creator. That's an overused term, but you need someone back there who can make something out of nothing. Kirk could never do that because he wasn't talented enough and he was very, very by the book. It was just, everything had to go the way that, he had been told. He is like, I'm Ron Burgundy. Like that's the kind of brain that he had. Where you need someone who has they have been coached to the point where they essentially are able to coach themselves and coach the people around them. Like that happened with Brady, that happened with Aaron Rodgers, that happens with a lot of great quarterbacks. It takes time to get to that spot, but I'm interested to see how McCarthy gets there because I told you this over text, but the knock on him coming out was that he was inexperienced because he was the youngest QB in the draft, but also because he didn't throw a lot of passes when he was in Michigan. Well, he still started 2 full years at Michigan, and he won every game except for one of them. And that matters. Like it matters that he was put in charge. His job was to keep that offense running smoothly and keep it humming. And that's exactly what he did. And that I think that says a lot, even if he wasn't throwing for 500 yards a game. It doesn't mean that he doesn't strike me as the kind of guy where he's throwing for 150 yards a game and I'm just sitting there dying because it's 3rd and 3 and it feels like 3rd and 1,000,000. Like I don't think I'm going to get, I know that you have compared it to, what was it, Teddy's 2015 season? Was that the season before he got hurt?
2015. Yeah.
I remember having to talk myself into Teddy a little bit more than I should have, right? Because like Teddy was like a great leader and, he was accurate and all that stuff, but there was still it still felt like he was not, it's kind of like Kirk where it's like, he's not in that, he's just below the top level of talent. And I'd like to see if McCarthy is in that top level of talent, even if he's not, posting the numbers that we want him to post, because this entire season, I'm going to go through the list of all the other crap I want to see, but like the season, if the kid's good, the season's a success. That's it. Like that's the entirety of it. Like it's a referendum on if the kid is good enough that we know he's going to be here for 5 to 10 years, forget it. Like that's a success of a season. Kwesi and Kevin will get extended, and then we can go into 2025 just absolutely fired up.
And already what we've seen from JJ McCarthy in training camp is starting to make this a success just because of how comfortable he's looked with the offense and how much he's developed his accuracy since minicamp, where he was doing a lot of things that he had never done before. He was lining up in the shotgun a way that he had never done before, and he was trying to get down this footwork and was really struggling and throwing the ball all over the place. And then he comes back after working super hard at it And suddenly it looks like, all right, well, now he's throwing the ball a lot more accurately. And now he's getting the guys to the line of scrimmage. And it looks like he understands play calls. And you don't see Kevin O'Connell throwing his hands up or running over to him after every play. He looks like somebody who should be an NFL quarterback, which is already a step forward. And the thing that I didn't maybe realize about JJ McCarthy, having watched him just on television, is the physical talent that's there. Because when you hear a guy constantly talked about his win-loss record in college, I think, oh, is it like Ken Dorsey or something?
Right.
Great. But when you actually see him show up and you look at him in person, I was talking with Nate Tice when he was out at training camp, and we were talking about how funny it is that the listings, height, weight, and then you see him in college, it can be different when they arrive and they're actually in front of you. Does he look big? Does he look physically gifted? Does he look fast? Does the ball come out of his hand quickly? And all of those things are first round boxes that have been checked. And because he's done that, because he's looked comfortable, I think we will see him this year. I'm just not sure exactly when, because I know that Kevin O'Connell wants to give Sam Darnold every opportunity to be that reclamation project. I also know that they want to win, and we heard from the owner that we want to win, we want to be in the playoffs, we want to be in the division race and all that, even when it is a rebuildy type of year. But to have already made this much progress with JJ McCarthy, and how much he has improved himself in a short period of time. First of all, it made me wish for being 21. Like, oh, remember when you could get good at stuff? Like you would have time to do things and then your body worked right.
Like you're still getting carded and like your girlfriend's hot. You're like, oh, life was good then. Yeah.
The wife is still hot, but I'm just, that is true. Yes. But I even mean like if you wanted to learn a new skill, your body still works that way. It's not like totally set in its ways. And he just has figured this stuff out.
No, I'm awful. I've completely bought all the, like when I read the report that he was staying at Winter Park when everyone else had pissed off for like to go to the beach and stuff like that. And he was like learning the offense. I was like, this guy gets it. This guy knows what, and like, this is already the time, like where I had to like mute Ty Dunn because he's already like on Jordan Love's jock super hard, which totally fair for a national NFL reporter to be impressed by Jordan Love. But it's like, wow, there's shades of Tom Brady in there. And I just want to tear my own eyeballs out when I see that. So, but if you say it about JJ McCarthy, I'm like, ooh, the kid's got it.
Wow, that's why you're here. But as far as how he's handled it, that's another thing that from my experience, you just have no idea. Every kid comes out of college and 95% of them do have pretty high character, but it is such a transition into a different lifestyle.
Yeah.
And I've brought that up a bunch of times that he stuck around, but I think it's a huge deal. He understood, I have an ocean of information to learn from this head coach who has a lot of layers to his passing game. So I can't go to Cabo. I need to get with Adam Thielen. Although it's almost like two purple, two Vikings, two like, he got together with Adam Thielen and they threw the ball and everything. But that's a really big thing. When do you think he'll play? What week do you think he'll play?
I think by October he will be playing. I don't think there's really much doubt about that. I just, like I said, Sam Darnold is Sam Darnold, and he'll give us some laughs, for a little bit, but then nature will take its course.
Yeah, probably. I did ask. I have a uncle-in-law who's a Jets fan, and I said, "What do you think? There's any chance here with Darnold?" And he just responded, "No." And I was like, oh, okay, yeah.
You know how many awful quarterbacks he's seen in his life?
And he's older. I mean, like going way back to have seen Namath. So he probably,
and Namath was bad. Namath wasn't even a good quarterback.
So, but he saw like one good year of Namath, and then his knees fell apart, and then the rest has been a travesty for this entire man's poor life. So it could always be worse. If you want to throw a few comments in the comment section for Drew, if you want to heckle him, if you want to ask him questions, you do have one question here. Matt says, the safety room seems pretty deep. How will they all fall off a cliff and end up ruining the defense?
Oh, listen to this goomer.
People know your brand.
Get out of here. Okay, so the safeties are great. And the one thing that I thought, I texted you on this one. it was an idea I had. I don't necessarily endorse it, but I thought perhaps by the end of training camp, because the cornerback room is so screwed, I thought that and because the safety room is so deep, I thought that they would trade one of the safeties away, maybe Cam Bynum, to get a corner, so that the talent in the secondary is more spread out, because it's all concentrated in the safety room right now. And I have complete faith that the safeties will be good. I don't think they will fall off a cliff, because if Bynum sucks, well, Theo Jackson's pretty good. Like, we've already seen him play well in regular season games. So I don't really have much of a problem with that. And then, of course, Josh Metellus is excellent. So, it feels like Flores wants to essentially make the defense out of like multi-tools, and I'm fine with that. But the corner room's going to bite us in the ass. And that's really the worry. And that, I think, is that, and the quarterback situation are the reason why everybody, including myself, are going to pick this team to finish third or fourth in the division. It's just, there is a glaring talent hole that they are not going to be able to fill, even if they were to make a late training camp trade, or to get some guy who the Chirk visited on another team and they bring him in late, or somebody like it's not like Fabian Moreau's not going to suddenly be, an all pro. That's just not going to happen.
Right. I think to your idea, sometimes when you send me trade ideas and stuff, I'm like, well, I don't hurt his feelings and say that I hate this idea.
You're like, oh, he took a gummy. Yeah.
I kind of do hate the idea of trading Cam Bynum, because they want to win. But I see your point with Theo Jackson, and they're trying to get him on the field more often. And if they're not going to re-sign Cam Bynum, it kind of depends on that. But I like the depth of that group, and people always get banged up and so forth. So if you,
it's funny that they drafted Louis Cine, and Louis Cine is terrible and unplayable, and yet the safety room is like their best defensive position right now.
What's the next thing on your list?
Okay. The next thing is, hang on. I have to consult. Turner. It's Dallas Turner.
Okay.
Yeah.
Dallas
and
Turner.
I am already trying to train my brain so I don't call him Dallas Hunter, because the D in the thing. And the position,
like Danielle Hunter. I got you.
I know.
I didn't know if Dallas Hunter was like a celebrity that I didn't know about.
No. That sounds like a soap opera star, but no.
Maybe it's a like a sitcom or a network show from the 90s. Remember how all the shows were very dark, and it was always like murderers and stuff, like Dallas Hunter. And it's like, I watch all the old games, and when Al Michaels is doing the reads for the upcoming shows, like, man, that sounds like a terrible show. Anyway,
because Al was always so enthused to do those promos too. He was so
loved it.
Anyway, I was so used to the defense for years and years now being Daniil and nobody else, right? It was like Daniil and Harrison and nobody else, that I like. Those were the guys I always focused on, right? Like, they're just the guys I would always watch on the defense. And I think Turner is essentially going to slot into that position. Like, in my brain, like the stupidest fanboy in me is like, oh, he's Micah Parsons 2.0. Like, that's already like in my mind. There's no guarantee of that, right? Like, he could suck, like he could be bad, but I don't think so. Like, I am excited to see a team that actually has like more than one pass rusher. And I'd like to see if they can actually finish the job once they get to the quarterback. Because the play where they get to the quarterback, and then Russell Wilson is like, and then, throws a 30-yard bomb and completes it. Those are the worst moments, as a fan, that you have to endure. So if he and Van Ginkel, who's also on my list, and Grenard can get to the quarterback and bring him down, that's going to be a lot of fun too. Like, we might not have a good defense, but I do think we'll have a defense that makes plays. And that is exciting to me.
Well, the depth of pass rushing changes the game from what Flores had to do last year. As fun and comical as it was, where they were blitzing every play or dropping 8 every play, that's not really what you want to do. And eventually teams figure that out.
Right. It's got a bit of wildcat energy to it. You know what I mean?
Yes,
where it's like, it works for only so long.
And then it didn't, especially when they played good teams. But now Grenard, and maybe Grenard is so funny. Grenard will walk off the field and walk right by the media. Nobody talks to him. The guy is a $20 million a year signing, but because there's a quarterback and a first round edge rusher and all these things, he's just like, okay, well, I'm just living my life here. But that guy in any normal offseason would have been the biggest signing. He's been, I think, really good in this training camp. Van Ginkel is a versatile player, and you could put all three on the field at the same time, which we've seen them start to do.
Yeah,
And
he'll do that.
I also think that with Turner, it's the simplest thing, but Brian Flores giving praise and specific praise to someone is usually a good tell. Like coaches praise a lot of people, but you have to kind of listen to what they say exactly. And then having him have all the first team reps, like, it's telling, because clearly Brian Flores does not care about draft status since Ivan Pace Jr. made it as a UDFA. So the fact that he's rotating in already, the quickness that he has, the movement skill that he has, and what I didn't know about him when he was in Alabama is that he's a very, very bright guy, which if you can be that combination of things, that's where you make superstars out of. So he's looked really good, and the returns are good, and you don't want to go over the top and say they have the next Von Miller here, but considering his draft status, his college production, how he's fit in so far, like, all of that looks very good for him.
Yeah. And, I remember in my experience playing football, you're exactly right. If a coach acknowledges that you exist, that means that they care about you and they like you. That means you're a player. It's when they don't talk about you, you may as well not be on the roster. Like, that's kind of how it goes. So if they acknowledge your existence, okay, then there's something there. I think that is accurate. That's not an overreading of tea leaves when that happens.
I can demonstrate how we analyze praise. You say to me, what do you think of a player? And I'll tell you, and then I'll tell you if I like him, if I don't like him. Go ahead. Ask me.
What do you think of LDR?
Oh, well, look, the other day we were in a meeting and the three coaches pointed out the way that he had his hand movement on the inside shoulder. This guy pushed him out of the way, went in, got the quarterback. He's got the deepest drive. I met his family. He's my best friend I've ever met. That's when I like a guy. Now, if I didn't like him, I'd be like, you know what? We got a lot of guys who are doing a lot of good things out there, and he's in that mix. Yeah,
I can parse those quotes.
That's the difference.
I'm good with Kevin O'Connellese now too. Like, I can totally because he'll just talk for paragraphs and paragraphs, and like you have to like extrapolate like the one thing where the one like sentence where he's conspicuously not saying something, and that's like where your copy comes from. So
I think that with O'Connell quotes, you could create an AI model that identified the one sentence that matters out of the entire answer.
He sounds like an AI model. Like sounds like a chat GTP when
By the way, this show has sponsors, and so when we do it live, I have to read them. So I appreciate the great folks at US Cellular. US Cellular noticed the way that we use our phones has gotten ironic. We try to put our phones down for dinner, but the menu has a QR code. That's ironic. We hit like on social posts that we don't actually like. Ironic. Which is why US Cellular created Us Mode to help us reconnect with each other and use our phones less ironically. A phone company wanting people to use their phones less is ironic. Let's find us again with Us Mode from US Cellular. Visit uscellular.com/built-for-us to get started. All right, let's see here. We got a question from Mike. Drew, how do you feel about our linebacker room for this season? Granted, we haven't seen them in full contact yet.
I love Pace. I assume Cashman will be pretty good. And that's kind of it, right? Like, Flores only uses two linebackers, and like we can call Metellus a linebacker essentially because he's doing that a lot. So I worry about depth. I worried about it's no coincidence that we had issues last year when Jordan Hicks had his medical problem, and then Byron Murphy got hurt, and then everything fell apart. So, the depth there, the depth at corner and the depth at defensive tackle, those are all very, very serious issues that in a 17-game season, they are inevitably going to present themselves to you. Like, you're gonna have to deal with them. And so, if Pace goes down, it seems like he's made of adamantium, but we're all human. If he goes down or if Cashman goes down, then I'm concerned. And of course, I was already concerned about Van Ginkel because he had the Liz Frank injury, and I'm so used to NBA players whose careers are just like the second they hurt a foot, I'm freaked out by that. Even though I know it's a different injury in football, I'm still like, I'm a little skittish, I think I got a little PTSD from Kirk going boop in Green Bay.
Well, all three guys that they signed do have injuries, as football players do. If Cashman were to get injured, they did sign Kamu Grugier-Hill, who has been around. He's played a lot of snaps in the NFL. It's not like he's been a well above average player. Otherwise, he'd be starting. But
he's an innings eater,
right? They do have more depth than they did at that position for last year, where they had to go out and sign Anthony Barr. If you're just joining us live, Drew Magary, Defector, Why Your Team Sucks is out, the Vikings version. It is as good as you would expect. I tweeted it. I'm sure he tweeted it as well. So go check that out. And we are running through Drew's list of things you're most excited about for the 2024 season. All right. So you have the wide receivers, JJ McCarthy, Dallas Turner, and
I had Andrew Van Ginkel after that.
Okay.
And we sort of talked about that. But I think I'm more excited for him as an I shouldn't say edge rusher, because he's going to be all over the place. I'm more excited for him as a multi-purpose rusher as opposed to Grenard. I think Grenard is just going to be a higher quality innings eater than some of the people who have come before. Like, he'll be better than DJ Wanham. I have no doubt about that. So that's really cool. But I think he's going to be very workmanlike in how and that's why he doesn't get much attention. Right. Mm-hmm. And I think that's really good. Like, someone I don't have to worry about. Like, that's actually going to be my approach with Will Reichert. Like, I'm not going to worry about this guy until I have to worry about him. I think that's just the better way to go. Like, I'm not going to freak out about kickers, because I remember you said, and this wasn't that long ago, but you said you felt that the kicking curse, and I'm air quoting, of this team was overstated, because it was tied to Gary Anderson missing, and it was tied to Blair Walsh missing, and it was tied to, all the stuff that's happened in the interim. But it's really not been that bad of a run. And I agree. Like, Ryan Longwell was a perfectly good kicker. Kai Forbath was a perfectly good kicker. And like Greg Joseph made kicks, like his PATs were always a surprise party, but so I'm not as like doom and gloom about the kicking game with this team than a lot of people, because it's like Blair Walsh was like nearly a decade ago. Like, it's been a while. So
yeah, and I think that it's kind of like if you were dating and you had one lady that really broke your heart and the whole rest was kind of normal for dating, you would say, I'm just always getting my heart broken. Because that one was so big in your life that even normal dating otherwise, sometimes kickers miss an easy kick to lose a playoff game. And then sometimes kickers melt down. And overall, I think their percentages are probably just okay over the last decade since then. The Dan Bailey thing was kind of weird, to tell you the truth, because he was one of the best kickers in the league and then
he sucked.
Right. But that happens constantly. So
it does. Yeah. It's a kicker thing. Yeah.
Right. With Reichert, did Reichert make your list? Or you're not excited about the kicker, but you're...
No, I deliberately left Reichert off the list because I don't want to have to worry about kickers either way. Right. So, but I did have, after Van Ginkel, I had all the other rookies. So, obviously Kyrie Jackson would have been on this list had he not been killed by a drunk driver. But so we have Rouse, and I think Rouse will be shockingly important because I'm a little skittish about O'Neill's health. I'm always skittish about Darisaw's health.
Yeah.
And I'm interested in Juergens because I still think that the interior line is bad. And if they see a chance to improve it with Juergens, and if it's not now, it'll be, a year or 2 years. There'll be a developmental curve with him. But I'm interested to see about that. But then also LDR, probably because my friend Kalen Kaler did the whole profile of him about Prospect X, and I was like, this guy wants it, even though there's no guarantee that he'll be anything. But of course, he's also got the John Randall pedigree, where he's like a school in Texas you never heard of, basically undrafted, but 7th round undrafted, nearly the same thing. So I'm excited to see him. And then also the UDFAs. So McGlothern,
Murphy, Gabriel Murphy.
Yeah, Murphy, and then Deshaun.
Oh, Deshaun Jones. Yeah.
Deshaun Jones.
So, I mean, now you're getting a little deep in the weeds here with players who we'll
Yeah.
see. We'll see.
No, but I'm, look,
you kind of mean all the underdog players.
Yeah. All the underdog players, because I think I'll be interested to see if, we say it, and you're right to say, someone like Ivan Pace happens once in a blue moon, right? Like that doesn't usually happen. But we're one of those sort of no-name guys, were they to emerge and be a significant contributor this year, it would suggest to me that Kwesi in the front office found a market inefficiency well worth exploring. Because you've talked about Brad Johnson. Well, Brad Johnson would have been undrafted today because he was a ninth rounder?
Ninth rounder, yep.
Yeah, so he was a ninth round. There is no ninth round anymore. And so you have all these guys at the, in the undrafted free agent pool. And because they go undrafted, well, it's part of it is a function of their ability, but part of it is also a function of the fact that the draft is much shorter than it was, particularly from its, original inception. Like Johnny Unitas was like a 69th round pick or something. I can't even remember, right? So if they are able to find a way to, hack the draft by scouting undrafted free agents really intensely, giving them good deals, and then having a developmental system in place at team headquarters that, that gets the most out of them. Because if I said, I'm always like, when I'm high and stuff, and I always pretend I'm like the owner of the Vikings, because I'm old enough now where I can't even pretend I'm the coach. I'm older than freaking Kevin O'Connell, right? And I'm always thinking like, my philosophy would be, I want to set everything up in the building so that every player who comes here has the best possible chance of succeeding that they're going to have in their career. And I think that actually is happening in the building. I'm sure I'm still high from getting rid of Kirk. I will always be high from getting rid of Kirk. And I don't mean like the actual high. I mean like a metaphorical high. I didn't pop a gummy before. It's too early.
You do have to go back and forth between you have to clarify there.
Yeah. I have to clarify. I'm not stoned at 10:38 a.m.
Well, when it comes to this
morning.
though, there were lots of times throughout the last couple of years where fans would get excited about a late round pick or a UDFA, Jalen Twyman or something, and I would go, I don't know, guys. My rule used to be I'll learn their names when I have to, when it comes to the UDFAs. But I think when I asked Flores about it, he did such a good job of explaining that they intensely focus on guys who would fit or have something that they think they could get them to do. So this is what we do. Can you do that? Not, we're just going to grab guys and then try to teach them, hey, this is our system, whatever. And his point was that players can fail when they could go one way or the other if they just don't fit or if they're asked to do everything. If you say to Gabriel Murphy, you have to be a complete player, you have to master every part of this. Well, he's a UDFA for a reason. He's probably not going to be able to do that. But can you do one thing that's pretty good? Can you, for Dwight McGlothern, can you play in one coverage? And I think for Ivan Pace, he is the total outlier because he could do absolutely everything. And they just didn't like him because he was short in the draft.
Yeah, he could captain the defense for crying out loud.
And the other part is, too, that the Wilfs will give them the money to spend.
Yeah.
And so instead of, well, we'll just get whatever off the UDFA market, here's $300,000 to make that guy the highest paid UDFA. That's going to give you a higher chance of success too.
Yeah, I agree with you completely. I used to look very much down on coaching staffs that were more fit to scheme than scheme to fit, right? I was always like, oh, they care so much about their scheme, they don't actually care about having good players. This was like, sort of like a Josh McDaniels type of guy where it's just like I'm only gonna I'm not gonna take I'm not gonna take Caleb Williams. He improvises too much back there. He's off my draft board. Like guys like that. And it's not an either or thing, right? Like when you're Kevin O'Connell, you have a very good idea of what your offense should be and what you want to be. And you already have the players sort of in place for that. So you already have this, pie. That's a crappy metaphor, but like, because it's already overused, but it's like, okay, I already have this sort of, I have the scheme and the talent in place. And so now I need someone who has a specific talent for this specific situation and all that stuff. So that it's a lot more obviously ornate than I thought, because I'm just a fan, right? So the idea that they would, zero in on someone like McGlothern or someone like Murphy, who they think they can do, as Flores said, one thing well, like what do you do well? Okay, here's where we can use it. I think that I have a lot of faith in them to be able to do that to a limit, obviously, because if they have to elevate McGlothern to be the starting outside quarterback this year, there's a very good chance that he is not ready to assume those responsibilities.
Right. Yeah, correct. With McGlothern and Murphy, they fall into the category of, hey, they've caught my eye. Not
Right.
What is happening at linebacker with this little dude who's destroying everything out there. He played, Pace played the first preseason game with what? Like this he's a monster. So I don't expect
he looked like Sam Mills out there.
Right, exactly. Little London Fletcher action from him. But as far as their philosophy, it's what's been a little bit weird is an adjustment when you have someone like Flores is we got used to kind of questioning everything that the coaching was doing for a few years. And then when Donatel comes in and it's a total disaster show and you just, okay. And then Flores seems to have such a good idea of what he's doing, how to construct the roster. He's a former scout, all the schematic stuff that he is inventive with. And then I think that if you were Pace isn't even the guy that you would circle if you were trying to explain to someone why Brian Flores is so good at his job. It's Josh Metellus.
Yeah,
because
I agree.
He was a 6th round special teamer who played like 200 snaps. And he looked at this guy and said, this is one of the smartest football players I've ever met. And he's tough. What can we do with that? And they invented an entire role for him that Durante Jones, the DB coach, told me the other day when we were talking about Theo Jackson. Like, that's what they call it. They call it linebacker. They don't call it safety. They call it the Metellus role because it's so specific to him. If you could do that as a coach, that's pretty special.
I mean, he's a rover. I mean, right. I mean, he's
but everybody says they want one and they never actually do it. That's the thing. Oh, we want hybrids. We want big nickel. Yeah. Okay. But it's hard to find a guy who can actually do that. So the fact that he was able to work it in anyway.
Well, it also used to be a liability. Like I remember, when they drafted Dwayne Clemens and the knock was, oh, he's a tweener, right? Like he's not quite a linebacker. He's not quite a defensive end, and he sucked. But that's not, those sorts of limits seem to have been handled by smart coaches of late.
Right. Exactly. Okay. What else we got? I don't even remember what that was on your. Oh, that was underdogs. The underdogs of the.
Yeah.
We'll
the other one was how Flores. Speaking of Flores, how he uses Jay Ward and Theo Jackson, because Jay Ward was basically a non-entity last year. The only thing I remember about him was like committing a really bad special teams penalty in a game.
Was he offside? I think.
Yeah.
Or,
so I was annoyed at the time, but it wasn't something where I'm like, cut his ass. Like if he
lined up offside, didn't he? Didn't he line up offside?
Probably.
That's pretty bad.
But if he ends up being a capable defensive back, that would be cool. I'd be interested to see if some of these early seeming mistakes in the draft from Kwesi actually pan out. So that's Naylor, that's Jay Ward,
Ty Chandler.
Yeah. Ty Chandler is already good. So and he was a 5th. So it's like, I consider that pick already a success. Like he's a capable, productive back that you can put into a game. He's not a slob. So that's good.
Right. If he plays more this year effectively and you got a right guard who can play more effectively than he did last year and a Caleb Evans contributes, then the draft class is still bad, but it isn't as bad. It's still bad, but it's not as bad. If you got 3 starters out of it, then it's less tragic.
And I mean, every team screws up a draft pick. Like the Chiefs drafted Sky Moore. He sucks. Like it happens. It's okay.
Yeah, he thinks you suck as well. What else we got?
Temecula Sky. My last one was Ivan. Just I want to see Ivan in his second year because I think he will get better. I think he's legit. And I think there were times last year where he would get a little lost because he was a rookie, right? Yeah. Like he would get a little like just he would, or he would overshoot a play because he's a bowling ball and all that stuff. But I think he will be a bit more refined this year, and I'm excited to watch that. Like, he is a guy that your eyes just go to on defense because he's moving around. He's always around the ball. Those guys who are they're always around the ball. And then Collinsworth is like, I've been looking at Ivan Pace. Wow. What he has done for this organization, like, that sort of thing. Like, I'm excited for that.
We're talking about a guy here that's a linebacker guy. He is
one of the things about Ivan Pace. It's always one of the things.
He just reminds me of the underdog linebackers when I was growing up, and there's something to that because they had kind of disappeared. I mean, Kendricks was undersized, but he wasn't this undersized. And the way that he plays, now we talk about, he's got to be good in coverage and sideline to sideline. And the Brian Asamoah draft pick is, we want this safety / linebacker up there. And so to have a guy who, he is short, he still weighs like 235, 240 pounds.
Yeah.
So
you break your hand punching him.
Yeah. Right. There's a lot of muscle in that little body. And to have someone who plays in the style that he does, one thing that's fun to watch on tape is when a guard goes to hit him and he will aggressively just attack the chest of the guard with his entire body. He'll just throw himself. And a lot of times the guard is like, like he just didn't expect it at all. He just expected he was going to swallow up this little guy and you're going to move on. And it's kind of stunning to them how aggressive he plays. He's a fun one to watch. So him taking another step this year, or even just being as good as he was last year with a little progress, is worth watching as well. One more question for me, though. What is a successful 2024 season in your mind for the Minnesota Vikings?
Oh, I told you, if it's the kid is good. If the kid
that's
is good,
it.
then
There's nothing. You don't need anything else.
No, I don't. I don't, because what'll happen is, all right, let's say the kid is good, but they go 6-11, right? Which is altogether possible because, again, the schedule is very, very hard. The last game of the season, I'll be like, just like I was a season ago. But then a few days will pass and I will, I'll simmer down a bit, and then I'll, sort of see the big picture, and I'll be like, okay, the kid's good. We got all the cap room in the world. We can start building around him. This is going exactly where we wanted it to go. And I will be happy. But will I like watching them suck for a year? Of course not. That's why Mark Wilf was like, we expect to win. He's the owner. He's got to sell the team, right? He's got to sell, he's got to sell customers on wanting to watch this. He's not going to say like, yeah, I'm all right sucking this year. You don't have to come to games. Like, he's not going to do that. And nobody on the coaching staff or in the locker room is going to be like, yeah, we're fine having a losing record this year. They're not, nobody's wired that way. They're not. They're going to want to win. If they fail, then everyone will be disappointed, myself included. But then, you go back and you metaphorically watch the tape and you go from there. Because if you still have the pieces and if the bones of the house are good, that's pretty cool.
So how would you feel about this scenario? McCarthy doesn't play, but the final game of the season, they are going against the Detroit Lions with the playoffs on the line. How do you feel about that? Is that good to you? Or is that, you wanted to see McCarthy and 8-9 or 9-8 isn't good enough to justify him not playing? Or how would you feel about that?
So it would be Darnold starting all the way through?
McCarthy doesn't play a single game. Final week of the season, they fly to Detroit with a playoff spot on the line. Win and you're in.
I think I'd be fine with that if Darnold did enough to keep the job. So let's say, and I do not think this will happen. Let's say he throws 25 touchdowns and 15 picks, right? Like, that is, I think, saying he's going to go 35-10. That's not not going to happen. Right. It's really not. He's not going to turn into Mark Rippon. It's not. But if he has a passable Tannehill-like resurgence, and and they go into the playoff game, or they go into the, win or go home game like that, I'm fine with that. If he sucks and they're still in playoff contention and they're still not playing the kid, that means the kid sucks, and that's bad. And I will be irritated. So, I'll want them to make the playoffs, but I'll know that it's a bit hollow.
Yeah, I think if they were out of the playoffs the moment they were out, even if Darnold had played well for the whole season, it would be JJ McCarthy time. My guess is that we end up seeing him before that. Also, real
I
quick,
agree.
isn't it funny how our brains always go back to a certain point in time when we're making references off the top? Like, oh, yeah, this guy, he's kind of reminds me of like a Tony Banks or something. Like, he immediately goes back 20 years as opposed to something you said Brad Johnson earlier when like Anthony Harris was right there for a UDFA who had emerged,
Right.
but let's just a late round pick. Oh, yeah, it's just a Brad Johnson from when he, 93 draft or whatever.
I like the curiosity of the longer draft back in history. So I think that's why.
The 9 round. Yeah.
Yeah.
Why Your Team Sucks is an incredible series of articles.
Well, thank you.
Try to read every one, but I especially read the Minnesota Vikings version. So that is out now. People can go to Defector, check it out, go to NFL or go to your Twitter or whatever you want to go find it. It's great. And I always enjoy all of our conversations. And I got to say, do you want to just swear at the end here? I'm impressed. I said, hey, we try not to cuss too much on the show. And you went the whole episode.
Yeah, fucking A, man. Pretty good.
There you go. Okay. Thanks for doing that.
Pretty good.
Drew will talk probably a lot about the team as this goes forward. So thanks so much for your time as always. Thanks everybody for watching and listening. And we'll catch you all later. Thanks, Drew.
All right. Skol Vikings. See you guys.
Football.
All right. Thanks for